Salam, everybody. This is Investor Sheikh back at it again with another video. We're almost at 500 subscribers, so if you're new to the channel, please click on that red button. I do plan on starting another giveaway at 500 subscribers. Today's halal stock pick of the week is the Invesco PHLX Semiconductor ETF, ticker symbol SOXQ. Stock price is at $27.87. Now, in a previous video, I covered another semiconductor ETF, ticker symbol SMH. And one problem is that it's pretty expensive for one share, as it's currently at $278. Luckily, this week's halal stock pick is a fraction of the price and does give you good diversification in the semiconductor industry. Now, this is a relatively new ETF, and the amount of holdings it manages is a lot smaller than SMH, which explains the lower price. But this is a pretty affordable ETF if you are bullish on semiconductors. So I'm on the Invesco website, and a description of the company is, or the ETF is, the Invesco PHLX Semiconductor ETF is based on the PHLX Semiconductor Sector Index, so it's an index fund. The fund will normally invest at least 90% of its total assets in the securities that comprise the index. The index is designed to measure the performance of the 30 largest U.S. listed securities of companies engaged in the semiconductor business. Semiconductors include products such as memory chips, microprocessors, integrated circuits, and related equipment that serve a wide variety of purposes in various types of electronics, including in personal household products, automobiles, and computers, among others. The index includes companies engaged in the design, distribution, manufacture, and sale of semiconductors. The fund and the index are reconstituted annually in September and rebalanced quarterly. So this does explain a lot about the purpose of semiconductors and the fact that this ETF invests in a wide variety of companies that involve themselves in the semiconductor business. So on Zoya, it does give a brief description and the current stock price, as well as all the holdings, or the top holdings. So there's 33 holdings currently, but they show you the top 10, which consists of Broadcom, Intel, Qualcomm, AMD, Nvidia, TSM, Marvell Technology, Micron Technology, Applied Materials, KLA Corp, and Analog Device Inc. So if you have the full version of Zoya, you can see all the holdings. And so far, the top 10 holdings are all Sharia compliant, which does explain why I'm talking about this ETF. Especially if you're someone who wants to invest in halal stocks, but do not want to bear the risk of purchasing individuals' stocks. This can be a pretty feasible ETF. So looking at the stock price, this is a relatively new ETF as it came out last year in June, and it was at $25. Then it started going up slightly, little volatility here and there, and it went as low as $25. Then it started to go up as high as $32 a share, only for it to plummet, and it's starting to get back up. Now, there is a lot of volatility right now in the market, so I wouldn't suggest an entry point. But if you're someone who is bullish on semiconductors, it doesn't really matter what price you buy it at, because this ETF could potentially have the same growth as SMH, assuming the semiconductor business is profitable As you see here, this is the 5-year growth of SMH. And the ETF has gone up almost 300% over the past 5 years, which is really impressive when you see it. So you could potentially see this type of growth if you hold on to SOXQ long term. Now, I'm not going to give a price target because this all depends on the semiconductor industry as a whole. We are currently experiencing a chip shortage, which is affecting the delivery of various products such as automobiles, which nowadays rely on a lot of computer chips, as well as household items, IoT devices, computers. Basically, any electronic device that you purchase may have a semiconductor inside. Your phones have semiconductors, your TVs, practically any electronic device you have uses semiconductors. And this industry, I believe, will be here to stay for the next 50 to 100 years. So I highly suggest you look into semiconductors and understand what they are and its significance before you invest in this ETF, because these videos are not for financial advice. This is an opportunity for you to do the research on the companies and the ETF, to familiarize yourself with it before you put money into it. And that is what makes you a sensible investor, as opposed to somebody who wants to make a quick buck. Now, one thing I like about this ETF is it is a low-cost index fund. Now, a lot of the ETFs I've talked about typically have a very high expense ratio, such as 0.49%, 0.75%, but this ETF here has an expense ratio of 0.19%, which is significantly smaller than a lot of the thematic ETFs I've talked about. And this is a big deal because with high expense ratio ETFs, a lot of the long-term growth is going to be shortened by the expenses that you will be paying over the long term. So luckily, with this low expense ratio, assuming this ETF does grow, a lot of your money will not be turned over in the form of expense ratios. So basically, for every $1,000 you invest in SOXQ, you're only paying $1.90 in fees every year, which is pretty minimal if you think about it. And, assuming this ETF does grow in the long term, the growth is going to mitigate that expense ratio, practically making it pretty negligible. So all in all, this is a pretty interesting ETF. I do intend on building a position on this ETF because personally I am bullish in semiconductors. They are a very crucial part of our economy and our supply chain, and I don't see them going away anytime soon. This is Investor Sheikh checking out.